If I had to start a company today, completely solo, this is exactly how I'll do it. No team, no developers, no code, just AI and the right systems. And for anyone who is new here, I've been around in the digital marketing world for more than 16 years, and I've been a two-time founder, and I've lived and worked across multiple Southeast Asian countries, India, and also Greater China. The first time when I became an entrepreneur, there were no AI there. There were no AI tools to help me out. But this time I'm doing it with the support of AI. So I thought I'll help you understand what kind of tools, what kind of tech stack that you can use so that you can start with your own startup today. And we will go step by step from finding the right idea. And once you have figured it out, then how exactly you can build that idea using multiple tools in your stack. And once you have built that idea, how do you get validation from the market? And once you have some validation from the market where people approve it, they engage with it, how do you scale it by automating the ops so that you don't have to hire a lot of people? And once you have done that, how do you figure out marketing? How do you scale marketing, bring in more sales? Think of this as a blueprint. You can follow it whether you're launching a digital product, a SaaS, or anything related to service industry. So you can use this, apply it anywhere, whenever you want. First step that we have to follow is to figure out how do we find the idea. And the most common mistake that people make while they are trying to figure out what do they want to build when they want to become an entrepreneur is that they first come up with an idea that this is my idea without knowing if that will be accepted by people or not. Will you be able to sell it? Will you be able to scale it? You don't know that. So what you have to do is that instead of thinking of idea, you have to figure out the problem that people face. That's where you start, because once you have a solution around that problem, it will be much easier to scale, because when people they already struggle with something and you have a solution, it'll be easier to sell it to people. Don't try to be Steve Jobs. I know a lot of us, we want to be like Steve Jobs, that there is no problem. We will tell people that there is a problem. Yes, it's possible, but it needs a lot of effort, skills, and also luck. So my suggestion is you start with the problem, find a solution to that, and then sell it. If you have a lot of money, already have figured out funding, if you belong to a rich family, then sure, you start like Steve Jobs. And there are two ways that you can figure it out. First of all, if you have to figure out the problem, whatever they are facing, the best place to find these problems is Reddit. That's my recommendation, because people talk about the personal problems that they are facing and they discuss it anonymously, and anonymity gives you that power, because people, they are open to suggestions, people, they are open to discussions when no one knows who they are. So go to Reddit. If you have any idea how to use automations like N8N, then you can also create an automation which can scrape particular keywords, particular problem, and it will give you a summary of the problems that people are facing. So you can start from that. Once you have figured out the problem, the second step, my recommendation would be to go to Product Hunt, because that's where most of the SaaS platforms, most of the startups, they post their solutions. So you have to figure out if there are any existing solutions. If there are any existing solutions, then if there's anything that you can do to improve upon it. Even if you can't improve upon it, you just see how big they are, how big the market size is. If the market size is big enough, then yes, there could be multiple solutions to a single problem. So it doesn't really matter. It will give you an idea what exactly you need to fix in current system, or if you have to build an existing system. And to do that, you can still automate everything. Like I said, just like Reddit, you can automate that scrape from Product Hunt as well, so that you can get those daily updates, summaries of the problems that people are facing and what kind of solutions there are in the market. And once I have figured out the problem and a potential solution to that, I will move on to building the MVP. MVP stands for minimum viable product. No bells and whistles, not a lot of features, just the solution. So it doesn't have to look impressive, it needs to be functional. That's it. And where you can do that, there are multiple platforms out there. This is just a short list, because these are the platforms that I prefer to use, because I feel like they have something which others don't, and there are some USPs that you can use on. We will talk about it in a bit. So Software, Lovable, VS Code, or Cursor. And how you can use that, for example, if you bucket them together, Software, I personally use Software whenever I want to build some dashboards or portals or marketplaces, because they have those drag and drop features where you have multiple elements stacked side by side on top of each other. And yeah, it gives you that look and feel of a marketplace, a portal that you can use, not just for public out there, but once you have your own team, you can build your internal dashboards and portals using this particular platform called Software. Then we also have the the vibe coding apps like Lovable or Cursor. These are good for quick prototyping, easy launches because you don't have to publish it anywhere. And also they have access to multiple LLM models. So if you want to build it with, say, OpenAI or Gemini or Claude, they have those functionalities where you can pick and choose which model that you want to work with. However, they come with some capping because you cannot use it at unlimited capacity, so there are always restrictions. That's where Visual Studio Code comes into play. It's a little bit of learning curve, but then it's free, there's no usage cap, and you can use ChatGPT as a co-pilot. So exactly like Lovable and Cursor, what you can do is inside the ChatGPT app, you can give it access to VS Code, Visual Studio Code, and whatever code that you want to build, you just tell ChatGPT, it will just create the whole code inside the Visual Studio Code directly. However, it's a bit more trickier, so I would suggest you still start with Lovable. Once you have figured it out, you can move on to Visual Studio Code. I have created the whole series, a whole video on how you can start with that, the Vibe Coding for Marketeer series. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. That's where I talk about how you can use a mix of Lovable, Cursor and Visual Studio Code without spending a lot of money. One thing that you have to keep in mind is the idea behind any MVP is more of the functionality, that it should be functional. It doesn't have to be impressive looking. It can have some basic features, the minimum features that is needed to make the product work. That's all it has to do. So don't focus on amazing look and feel, the transitions, the animations, and multiple features, plug and play. No, just make it work for the problem. It needs to work the solution. That's it. And apart from the stack that I suggested earlier, I also have a notable mention, which is the Gemini Studio. You can use Gemini Studio. It gives you a lot of free tokens. It gives you access to all the Gemini tools like Nano Banana or VO3. If you have any idea around Gemini products, go ahead, use it. Once I have successfully deployed the MVP, the web app or any other tool, I would like to test it with my close friends. And once I've done that, I need to go with market validation. I need to go after the people that I want to sell it to, get their feedback. And that is the most scary part of this whole process, because you don't know, maybe you had a great idea. You personally think that it's a great idea. You fell in love with your idea. What if the market just rejects it? So to avoid that, we have to get that validation early and fast. And how to get that is that you reach out to your friends, your colleagues, the bigger circle, also like-minded people from Reddit and LinkedIn. How you can do that is, for example, on Reddit, there are multiple subreddits called r business, r/entrepreneur, r/SaaS. So there you have a lot of like-minded people who can help you out. You can tell you what works, what doesn't work for them. Once you have done that, which is your one-on-one validation from people, you can also implement some tools like your Hotjar or PostHog, because you also want to track the events on your website, whatever people are doing on your website, what kind of buttons that they are clicking, what is the drop-off point, where they leave the website, where they stop using it, things like that. So you need to implement a few things here and there. Like for example, Hotjar and PostHog, they have free tiers as well. So you can start with that. At least you'll have some basic understanding of what people like, what they don't like, when no one is watching them, but apparently you are watching them. Once you are done with that, what you want is 30 to 50 people who are willing to give you feedback one-on-one. If you can get on a call with them, understand their problems, understand how they felt about the product and what you can do to improve it. That's the kind of validation and feedback you want from your early MVP, because that will help you improve upon your current product. Because before you put a lot of money, a lot of effort into building your product, your service, you need the market to tell you what works, what doesn't work, what needs some improvement. And this is something that you can get by getting a lot of engagement on your website from the people, your early customers. It could be your colleagues, it could be your friend, it could be people from the internet, like I said earlier, but you need those 30 to 50 people to tell you why they are engaging, why they are not engaging, what you can do to get that engagement from them, because you need that. And once you have successfully received that validation from the market, even if it's a feedback, but mostly positive, what you can do is you can move on to the next stage, which is ops. And my suggestion is that you automate most of the things that are repetitive, which are a lot of grunt work, using tools like N8N or Zapier, because once you start doing that, you will save a lot of times. For example, you have things like data scraping. You need to go through a lot of websites. You have to figure out whatever they're doing, get data from there. You have to create a lot of content for social media, for your own website, your blogs, or it's marketing automation, which is your research, planning, execution, evaluation. So these are more of the more critical automations that you have to figure out early on. And after that, once you start scaling, you have to figure out how to get into invoicing, the CRM, lead management, chatbots, HR and admin, those kind of stuff. And once you start scaling, you will want a lot of these automations to be in place, because you do not want to be stressed to trying to figure out the areas where you do not want to spend time on, right? You have to focus on important things, and in order to focus on the important things, you have to let go of all the trivial things and things that do not need a lot of attention from your side specifically. And another bonus point is that once you figure out how to do these automations using platforms like N8N, these automations, these platforms, they connect with, say, for example, Facebook Graph API, Google Ads API, and everything that goes into the G Suite, that ecosystem. Because the more you progress, the more you would want your automation to work in your favor, to help you so that you can scale faster. And talking about scaling, once you have figured it out how to automate this, you also have to figure out your marketing stack. And based on what category that you are serving, be it, say, business to business, which is B2B, or B2C, which is business to customer, the strategies will be slightly different. So for example, if I am focusing more on B2C, I'll double down on social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok. There are other channels as well, like for example, Google search is there, there's display, programmatic, YouTube videos, and a lot of things that you can do. But you have limited money, right? You are a solo entrepreneur and you don't have enough money to burn into marketing, because you might want to save that money for something else, something greater, something bigger. So social media definitely is a must go for B2C at least. When it comes to B2B, you might want to focus a little bit more on, say, LinkedIn and Reddit. Paid versus organic, that is debatable based on what your appetite is, what your risk appetite is. Because if you have money for paid ads, amazing, because it will give you additional reach, it will give you additional engagement, it will give you the targeting options which you cannot get with organic. However, if you don't have the money for paid ads, it's absolutely fine to start with organic, because, well, you can always engage in different communities, different forums, talk to them, comment there, say something relevant, say something helpful, subtly push your product in there. Those kind of tactics can work. And there is one common channel, which is YouTube. Just like this particular video that I'm shooting for YouTube, I figured out that YouTube, it works for B2C and B2B both, because this channel is evolving and it caters to both demands, be it from B2C or B2B. However, there are a couple of things more which are common for B2B and B2C both, no matter what you do, is a stack for your research. I suggest Perplexity instead of ChatGPT, because Perplexity, it relies on search first. So every time you want to research something, you want to ask Perplexity, it will search the internet first before responding to you. On the other hand, when it comes to ChatGPT or Gemini, they have their existing data sets and they push that first. So a lot of times the suggestions, the strategies coming from ChatGPT or Gemini might be outdated. So my suggestion is go with Perplexity when it comes to research. For design, the simple, easiest, cheapest solution out there is Canva. It can help you with everything from social media marketing to your billing, invoicing, to your designing, editing videos, creating posts, anything that you can think of when it comes to design for the internet, it's Canva. And in case you are catering to the B2B industry, there is one more thing that you can do, is figure out your cold outreach system. So I would suggest, at least for the free tiers, wherever applicable, for example, HubSpot. Sign up there. The free tier there with HubSpot, good enough for initial launch. Once you start scaling, you can always upgrade yourself to a higher tier. This is not a promoted video. I have not been paid by any of the tools that I'm mentioning in this video, so don't worry. Whatever I'm recommending from my own experience. So yeah, HubSpot for the outreach system. Apollo will give you the email IDs whenever possible, phone numbers as well. So you'll have your own database that you can reach out to using your product and services. Klaviyo is another email automation system. And after this, like I keep saying, and I also am a big fan of N8N. So if you can automate everything using N8N, go ahead, because it connects to most of the systems out there. In this whole stack, Apollo does not have any free tier. but it's not that expensive as well, especially if you don't want to reach out to hundreds and thousands of people. I think for $50 or so, it gives you access to like 5,000 contacts. Good enough for a startup. And anyway, once you have figured out the funding part, then of course you can spend more and get more contacts, right? And once you have gotten this traction, you have validation, you have marketing setup, you have some traction coming in, some people are there who are using your product, also paying you for it. Now it's time to go for funding, because you need a little bit of progress in order to impress the investors. But finding these investors, unless you know someone who knows someone, it's a little tricky. So what you can do is that if you want to secure those funding using these investors you don't know, you can always start with, say, for example, Crunchbase. You can find people there who are investors who have been funding similar companies or companies in your category or industry. Then you find the contact details of these people using Apollo. Once you have figured it out, I mean, the 5,000 contacts that you can download using the lowest tier of Apollo, you can of course reach out to say 50 investors out of that 5,000. It's less than 10%, right? So yeah, start emailing them, reaching out to them. But how do you know that you are ready for the funding? Will you even get the funding? For that, it's a simple thing, right? If you have an idea and also some proof that it works, some social proof, some engagement, some progress in terms of revenue, only then you can reach out the investors for funding. Because if you have a solid idea plus a backing from the customers that yes, they are willing to pay for it, investors will love it. If you can do that, then yeah, I believe most of the investors will show interest, at least respond to your email. And you don't need a lot, actually 50. Even if you can show that you have 50 paying users, you can start reaching out to the investors after 50 paying users. But the keyword is paying. It cannot be just free users. Till the time you have 50 paying users, 50 engaging users, returning users, sure, you can reach out to the investors. However, you have to keep in mind that also you need some beautiful presentations. For that, I suggest, if you are not very good at creating those appealing presentations using PowerPoint or Google Slides, I will suggest go with Gamma, because you can give a proper prompt, explain what you are trying to do, and it'll give you at least the wireframe. Then you can modify it, edit it, make it sweeter, simpler, and worthwhile for the investors. And when it comes to putting material inside these decks, the goal for you is not to pitch the dream. Of course, you need to have a vision, but the idea is that you have proof. Now you have to show the investors that you are steadily growing and you have plans which will make it grow faster, scale higher, and bring in more revenue, more profits. Because in the end, the investors, they usually don't invest in the idea, they invest in the social proof and the founders, their commitment to the idea, their passion for the business, and their vision around how exactly they can scale the whole thing. I mean, they want to 10x, 20x their investment. So they need to see that from you, not your idea. And apart from the tools that I mentioned here, there are also some worthy mention, notable mentions, like you already use, say, ChatGPT, Cloud, Notebook LM, Perplexity, or Gemini. Keep using that. I have no strong recommendations against or in favor of any of them. However, I will say whenever it comes to content, I've realized that Gemini is much better than anyone else whenever it comes to blog creation and all. Whenever it comes to coding, reasoning, mathematics, vibe coding the app that you are building, Cloud is my suggestion. ChatGPT is a generalist, so you can use it whenever you want. It's much cheaper as well. Perplexity, like I mentioned earlier, it's good for research. Whenever you want to research and your expectations are latest trending news articles, results, and things like that, Perplexity is the way to go. Notebook LM, I mean, everyone knows what Notebook LM is. It's to keep all your researches, notes into one place. So, I mean, use it however you feel. I usually use it to create those notebooks where I put materials from different sources, links, documents, YouTube, audio files, anything. So it helps me consolidate all my researches into one single place, and it doesn't hallucinate because it does not produce anything on its own. It just looks through all the material that you have stored. It's a RAG database which is using its memory to combine everything, cross-checking before responding. So that's the complete playbook for building a one-person startup. That's how I do it as well. And I'm suggesting that you can follow my steps and be successful successful in your own way. Because especially with AI, it's not about doing everything yourself. You have to focus on the important things. It's about designing systems who can do those things for you. And once you have figured out how these tools, they connect, they talk to each other, you will never feel understaffed, because that is a problem which most solo entrepreneurs they face, because we don't have money to fund a team, but we have a lot of stuff going on. But with AI, we have this help from AI. You can build your own agents who can do things on your behalf. But be careful that I always keep saying the same thing. First of all, for content, do not rely completely on AI. Let it just amplify your thoughts. Second, human in the loop is the most important thing. Do not let AI agent take decisions on its own. Always approve the steps, always approve the decisions before any action is being taken by these AI agents. So I hope I gave you at least some strategic ideas around how you can start your own startup with AI. If you think that you learned something new from this video, please give me a like, do subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in our next video. Cheers.